Okay, so now why is the case falling apart? There's a bunch of stuff going on here. Number one is the same day as the bail hearing, this photo was released by ABC News, which maybe we can put up here for you, which outlines this cut that apparently George Zimmerman had on the back of his head. Now, some people, let's put it this way, a lot of people saying many different things about this picture, which we now have up on the screen. Do we have that, Natan? We have it. Okay, so there's a lot of thoughts about this picture, Lewis. My thought number one is that if this is a police picture, then presumably the special prosecutor, Angela Corey, should have had access to the picture before she filed her charges. The picture and the fact that George Zimmerman had this cut, this blood, was not mentioned in those documents to the best of my knowledge. Now, if the prosecutor knew about this picture and didn't include it, that could be the exclusion of exculpatory evidence, which is actually a pretty significant problem with these cases, and it can lead to up to disbarment for these prosecutors. So this is a big deal, Lewis. Now, let's be completely clear about this. We don't yet know whether that picture has been doctored. I've heard no official statement about that picture. The picture may have been doctored. The picture may not be of Zimmerman. It may be Trayvon Martin's blood. It may be a picture of Zimmerman from some other point. I mean, we just don't know. We can't treat that picture as any kind of evidence. That being said, I am concerned, though, about the fact that that exists. I'm also concerned about an excerpt from a police report that was released, which says that George Zimmerman was bleeding from the nose and the back of his head. Again, so-called evidence, not official evidence yet, but it certainly is going to become a factor here. And I am starting to worry, Lewis, that this case against George Zimmerman is falling apart.
The case against him is falling apart.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way I think about it is, like I said, the witness thing seems to be very sketchy, right?
Well, as I talked with Larry Pratt on the last show, Larry Pratt says that we have the George Zimmerman statements and something else, but at the same time we also have Trayvon Martin's friend who was on the phone. We also have this blonde woman who made some statements. We have Trayvon Martin's statements. There is, but again, we're really dealing in the evidence colloquially, right? We're not talking about what is going to be evidence in the trial.
Right. I think it's going to be incredibly hard to determine exactly what happened when you've got only one person who clearly is going to speak in his own best interests.
And that's going to help Zimmerman.
Right.
No question about it.
I mean, how do we know that Zimmerman didn't walk up to Trayvon Martin, pull a gun, and, well, I mean, what would I do in a situation like that? I'm not going to turn and run, right? I mean, for all we know, if there are cuts and bruises on his head, it could have been Trayvon acting in self-defense.
Because Zimmerman pulled the gun on him.
Because someone followed him and pulled the gun on him.
No question about it.
It's
what we can say, though, is that I was skeptical about this new attorney, Mark O'Meara, the new George Zimmerman attorney. And the reality is, he did a very good job of inserting doubt about whether there even was a confrontation with some pretty good questioning of some of the investigator, the detective investigator. And the reality is, even if Trayvon Martin did end up pushing George Zimmerman to the ground, it could have been, as you say, because George Zimmerman was following him.
And pulled the gun on him.
But when you insert doubt, right, the standard here is beyond a reasonable doubt. And if we don't get real, what we can call evidence, if we have ambiguity here, Natan, this is an acquittal for George Zimmerman, no question about it.
I think there's definitely a chance that that's going to happen, and it's going to be one of these cases where people know that it's very likely that he is culpable, but he goes free because of the way the legal system deals with these cases.
O.J. Simpson case? I mean, does that ring a bell?
That rings a bell.
Yeah, that was a bit more money involved in that case.
Casey Anthony, Kaylee Anthony, that one?
That was an interesting case. That had to do more with discrediting a certain method than anything else.
That was a forensic thing, yeah. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and then we'll move on, is this statement that Trayvon Martin's mom made, okay? And I understand what she meant by saying that she believes what happened was an accident, okay? The problem is that it doesn't sound good. And here's if you didn't hear the statement, Trayvon Martin's mom said that she believes that it was an accident. Now, what did she mean by that? She didn't mean that it was an accident that George Zimmerman shot her son, Trayvon Martin. She meant that it was by random chance, by accidental chance, that Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin were even in the same place that night. The problem is, when you get that on paper, And then when you get other people starting to respond to it, the fact that she used that word, I believe it was an accident, even though she's not even talking about the shooting itself. She's talking about what she meant was it was random chance. What happened was random chance.
What does that have to do with what the jury hears in the courtroom?
It's just something that's going to be taken out of context.
It's just yet another thing that in the public record. By the media. And this is going to affect the trial. Just all of these little things. Because then you have what? You have people in the back of their mind saying, okay, George Zimmerman says this was not intentional. And the mom said it was an accident. Now, I know that's not what she meant. It was just a poor choice of words, and she probably shouldn't even have made that statement. But it's yet another piece that is just not going to help a case against George Zimmerman here.
Right.
I think that we will be lucky to get a plea for manslaughter here. That's where I'm thinking this is going. I said before, I think the charges are going to be more than manslaughter, but not first-degree murder, and that's what we got. And I'm very, very concerned about where this trial is going to go. Natan, you wanted to get in?
Yeah, I was just going to make a point about the juries. I was under the impression that in these types of trials, they get jury members who really have no idea what's going on outside of the courtrum.
You know, I talked to a friend about this. That's not the case. That's almost impossible in a case like this. What they look for, because remember, like Adam Winkler said, you don't want a biased jury in either direction, because somebody going in biased could very quickly change and be biased the other way very quickly. You want jurors who basically are just open to the idea that they don't know exactly what happened and want to hear the facts of the case. That's really what you're looking for in a case like this.
Right. And you're just assuming that they mean that when